Munster Hurling. We'll hear from them shortly. And in a few minutes we'll go live to Cork to hear about the Munster Hurling final. But first it's to Ulster. 2 semi-finals this weekend in the hurling. Antrim are the overall favourites to take the title. But the men from the Mourns have other thoughts.
I've done this journey countless times. In fact, over the past month, we chartered a boat to take us over here at 10 to 5 in the morning for a 5:30 training session. A full turnout and a full turnout that evening. Tremendous commitment. I think you have to understand that hurling was played in Portaferry and Calif area long before nations were born. There's such an intensity, a passion for the game here. One only had to see the feel-good factor that was generated by the win in New York. The number of people who came to me personally and said they were delighted at that result, at how encouraging it was for Down hurling to get through that particular obstacle. Antrim are already on record as looking forward to the All-Ireland quarter-finals. They obviously see us as the bit players, the extras in the big production on Sunday. But I think that they've got to realise that Down are not the small fish in this particular pond, and that certainly nobody is going to blow us out of the water on Sunday. All of Antrim will be against us, with one notable exception, the man who makes the hurls.
Hi Jared.
Jared, how's it going?
Not too bad.
Go for a stick?
I hope you take a few sticks. Going to give me a few scores on Sunday.
Sunday? Hopefully. So Jared, how's it working out with Jimmy O'Reilly then?
Jimmy's a special one. You know, he's very supportive of us and he's bringing a lot of youth through. He wants an under-21 championship this year, if not this year, next year. So he's a lot of under-21s on the panel, and he's also got, you know, the experience of Gary Savage and Noel Sands, along with Graham Clark. I know he's young yet, but he's very experienced, you know, and he's been around the county scene for quite a while.
There's guys there maybe in your team who are maybe going to make their debut on Sunday. They might freeze on the big day, and someone might just, you know, the grow, they've just blossomed because of the big occasion. And just say the big names cancel each other out at times. So those are the players that maybe can win you the game, turn the game around. Well, all the best, Jared, for Sunday.
Thank you very much. Knowing you, no, you don't mean that.
Well, don't be scoring too many points on Sunday, that one. Okay, have enough.
Of course, in the other semi-finalist, London, of course, against the defending champions, Derry. But delighted to say, joining us now from our Cork studio, Jim O'Sullivan of the Cork Examiner. Jim, whenever you look at the Munster hurling final on Sunday, this game is as big as an All-Ireland final.
Certainly, Adrian, in terms of stature, it ranks quite close to the All-Ireland final, except that you don't have the same crowd, you don't have the same national appeal, but certainly it's a game that excites interest in the full province and in the adjoining counties in Leinster.
Jim, whenever you take a look at the state of hurling all the same, it appears to people, let's say, like us who don't know that much about the hurling, let's put it that way, that there's only so many teams can actually win the All-Ireland hurling title.
That's an interesting point, Adrian. In a way, the excitement caused by Clare coming through in '95 and Wexford in '96, it clouded the fact that there were real problems in hurling. Now, I know the committee which introduced the backdoor system were anxious to raise the profile of the game, the weaker counties, and in generating extra revenue through the new games, they were hoping to put more money into coaching at lower level, at the underage level. In time, that should come true and help develop the game, but it's not happening so far.
Now, I'm sure the fellas won't like me for saying it, but we look at some of the clips from the teams in action in Munster this year. It's hard to see the likes of Ulster teams living with that standard.
Absolutely. You could also say that it should be hard to see some of the other teams in Leinster living with the standard, but in fairness, the competition this year in Munster has been very keen. I don't know what can be done to bring on the standard of the likes of Antrim and Derry and Down. Possibly the B Championship is the only really way that they could develop their talents and win something in the end.
Now, Jim, we have massive crowds going to the games. We obviously need more of that money to be invested back into the sport.
Well, I would agree. I think that has been planned by the hurling development plan unveiled by Joe McDonagh when he was president. All that money has to come right down to the very lowest level, and it has to be pursued and with massive coaching. I just don't know how long that more is going to take before we'll see the fruits of that work, but certainly the work needs to be done.
Jim, we're down to our last 30 seconds, so I'll have to ask you briefly the hard one. Who's going to win Sunday?
I would have said before the championship that Tipperary are the favourites, and I stand by that.
And what about Limerick? No chance at all? Or will it be close?
I give Limerick a very good chance, but they're playing a much more experienced Tipperary team. Limerick have done very well to beat Cork and Waterford, but I just don't think they have the same overall strength, the same balance in their team that Tipperary have.
OK, Jim, thank you very much indeed for joining us tonight from Cork. We turn now to football. We move up the country. Roscommon left Galway breathless in the last round to make it into the Connacht final against Mayo. But several of the Roscommon stars have been struggling for fitness. They arrived in Lisburn this week to avail of a special oxygen chamber in a bid to make it for the big day.
Well, in simple terms, it oxygenates the body at a faster rate than the normal if you're just breathing normally. And that when you're under that 33 feet, it's equivalent to being on the water at 33 feet. And that pressure on the body while you're taking in oxygen helps the healing process.
Kennelly again. It's a good ball up for Quincy Dolan.
We feel good after it, like we're very comfortable after it, and with a shoulder injury now and a hamstring injury, like, and with a bit of luck we can clear them up for the Connacht final. Like, they've good level all-stars there. They were in All-Ireland semi-finals and finals the last few years, and they're a very experienced team. And it's going to be a tough game for us. Like, a lot of young lads, we've a lot of young lads there, and it's going to be probably the toughest game they'll ever play so far in their careers. Like, and everyone's looking forward to it.
Up to run for it. The through ball in the centre of Paul Noon. Great run. Great finish.
It'll be a big game now wherever it's going to be played, but we have a lot of young players and some experienced players there as well, so it's going to be hard to beat them, but we'll give it a go anyway, see what happens.
Last year we lost to Leitrim, was a bit of a shock to everybody, and this year, like, we got to the semi-finals again, there's a bit of confidence back, and we done a bit better than we did against Derry, and especially after beating Galway, we were confident going into that game. We knew we were going to beat Galway, but it's great, like, to be in a Connacht final, and like all the supporters that really deserve it. They were good in the last few years, like, they're great supporters, and with a bit of luck we can come out with a victory.
I must say that's a game that I am really looking forward to. I think Roscommon produced one of the performances of the season.
Well, they were excellent against Galway. I mean, obviously the two goals come at the right time for them. Galway looked to me a wee bit on a downer, you know, they don't seem to be that confident about themselves this year, but Roscommon will give their fill for it, and if ever a team is hungry, it's Roscommon.
Do you not think, Ger, they've let the cat out of the bag, but they've no surprise factor left at all? Because Roscommon, people wouldn't have expected them to do so well, especially against Galway. I think Mayo's definitely going to be ready for them. On occasions in the past, Roscommon have made progress, but when they've got to the really big stage, they've buckled under the pressure.
Well, do you know what you say there too? Look, the bookies put Roscommon at 12-1, and yet Galway 7-1.
Yeah,
yeah, I think it's incredible. The same could be said for Mayo. I mean, Mayo are a team that have underachieved in many respects. And I mean, I have to say that Roscommon were phenomenal, I thought, against Galway. And everybody expected Galway to come through, despite the fact they had lost the league final. But, you know, Roscommon, I think they've mixed a wee bit of brain and a bit of tactical awareness and skill with the brawn, which they showed, you know, last year in particular. I remember the game down at Clones against Derry. I thought they were very physically strong, but just lacked in football ability.
But an interesting point came up there in the discussion. Leitrim beat Roscommon last year. Now, how much have Roscommon improved? I saw Leitrim against Antrim, and it was like a club's second team. Leitrim were the worst team I've seen this season.
There's some debate over that, as to who the worst team is here after last week. We're enough trouble after
No, but
that.
seriously, they are very poor, Leitrim. Now, they managed to beat Roscommon just 12 months
Well,
ago.
no, you have to question whether Seamus O'Neill can produce a game like the way he produced against Galway. That was a game you dream about.
I'm not sure. I think Gerard will obviously verify this, but confidence is a big factor. And, you know, we're going to see a different Roscommon than went into the last game against Galway. They're very much obviously on a high. O'Neill can produce it again, no reason why he can't, because confidence is everything in this game. And as I say, what impressed me was the fact that they were able to go long with the more traditional style of game. They were able to mix it in the second half with a short game. And they all were so keen to get on the ball. They looked more comfortable in the ball. You know, and I'm not sure what you think, but I mean, I think there's no reason why they can't. People are writing them off. Mayo are coming on the back of, I suppose, All-Ireland club champions as well. And, you know, I mean...
I just think there's a big anticipation on Roscommon. That's the one thing I would fear about them. Mayo have been there, all right, they haven't won an All-Ireland, but they won a National League title. They won an All-Ireland club championship across Malina this year. I just think Mayo will beat Roscommon. I think that'll be a bit better.
But Roscommon have goal scorers.
Yeah, who
you need goal scorers.
Who you fancy?
I think Roscommon.
I fancy Roscommon.
I'm tossing a coin because, well, I'm just thinking of people like Maurice Sheridan. I mean, Maurice Sheridan has been there, and he's we know about his free kicks. Kieran McDonald, temperamental
You can
players.
think about that during the break.
It'll be tight.
You can think about that during
It'll be tight.
Join us after the break. We'll be taking an in-depth look at the role of the modern referee. Don't go away. Well, welcome back. Now, like him or loathe him, you can't do without him. I'm talking about the referee, of course. And last week, Frank was back in Croke Park to look at the performance of Armagh official Brendan Gorman.
It's a chap from Armagh. Gorman, is it? Or yeah. Now, I haven't seen him ref, now, to tell you the truth, so I just have to leave my opinion till after the match.
I wouldn't know much about Brendan Gorman, but I assume he's a fair man. I hope he has a good game.
Well, Brendan Gorman to me is a very good referee. Yeah.
You'd be confident that he'll get the balance?
Yes. And he won't have to read that away with too much.
45,000 people arriving in Croke Park may have an opinion or are about to form an opinion on him, but the pressure doesn't show on Brendan Gorman.
That wee skiffle of rain will make things a wee bit greasy now, I can tell you.
He arrives with his officials 3 hours before the throw-in.
Usual. Let's go, lads.
Perfect time.
For Brendan, the routine for this game is the same as every other, and he sees no difference in the job whether it's in Croke Park or Cullaville.
There's not really that much pressure from a championship match, maybe at home in Armagh as well, you know.
You would actually find a club match as difficult to do as this?
Well, I mean, some of the club matches are very, very competitive, you know. The only difference is here is the size of the crowd, which really, once you start playing, and once the match starts, you know, underway, you know, you don't really notice that because you're so focused, you know. At the end of the day, you have to tell yourself it's just a game of football, you know. And
would there be players today that you have your eye on that could be troublemakers?
No, not really. You know, just like I say, you can't have any preconceived ideas of what a player's going to do or not do. You just have to react to what's happening on the pitch.
20 minutes before throw-in, the buzzer pad is placed on Brendan's arm. The linesmen can attract his attention by pressing the buttons on the electronic flags.
If you see something that happens on the pitch, and if it's violent conduct, don't be afraid to let me know. If it's sticking with the elbow or fist, just let me know, and they're walking for it, okay?
Brendan may seem to be the coolest man in Croke Park, but on the way out under the Cusack stand, you can sense the pressure of the big occasion.
Play the football, okay? Good day, good crowd, okay?
So 35 minutes gone and neither set of fans has actually noticed Brendan. That's what he wants. It's the referee's job to be as anonymous as possible.
In the second half, however, he couldn't escape the spotlight.
quite happy. I don't think there's any really contentious decisions there. I think everything was pretty clear cut there today.
He was really bad. Like, I mean, he just gave every ball that, like, it was like every free he gave to me. Like, every time they put their hand up or fell or Everton, the ball was always given to them, and I felt that the referee was very unfair towards Kildare.
Second half, well, more like a traditional Kildare Meath match, a wee bit more physical, and boys getting involved, and unfortunately they have to pay the consequences for that.
He was whistle happy.
It's a hard job, and I just thought he was very fair. I'm a Kildare supporter, and I was quite happy with the whole thing. It was hard luck for the lads.
The penalty, I think, changed the game, and the sending off of Kendyle. You know, I mean, we had lost Anthony Rainbow and we had lost Glenn Ryan during the week. And then with the sending off of Kendyle, I mean...
Would you question the sending off?
Well, I certainly would, you know, but I mean, what can you do? The decision of the referee, we'll have to accept to know more about it. But I couldn't understand why he sent it off, to be very honest.
The point I want to make is a very simple one. Both Kendyle and Paddy Rounds are hugely committed lads. And I just hated to see either of them being sent off. And that's the way it was. But like, all I can tell you, it takes two to tango. And the referee had to do it, he had to make the call. And that's it.
Oh, I'm delighted, like I say, I'm delighted with the performance. There's no sort of decisions there that I would like to go back and have a look at. Like I say, everything was clear cut. The odd wee push and pull you might have missed or whatever, you know, but I mean, the major decisions were made, and I think they were made correctly.
I have to ask a very simple question. What game was that Kildare supporter watching? I thought that was the performance of the season by a referee.
Yeah, I thought Brendan Gorman, I mean, obviously I'm slightly biased because he's an Armagh man, but I thought, you know, it was a big game for Brendan, and he did particularly well. He was up with the play all the time, and the two decisions he got for the sends off, I think he got them perfectly right. I mean, nobody could stand up and say Paddy Rounds didn't deserve to go.
But Frank, even coming off there, no matter how good a game you have, it shows you like why be a referee? Look at the abuse.
He was insulted. He was insulted by Kildare supporters as he left the field. Abuse was shouted at him. The sort of abuse was shouted at him that if you shouted it in Northern Ireland, you would be arrested. That's the sort of thing that was said to him. And it must be said that Brendan Gorman, in my opinion, is the sort of referee who, if we don't have Ulster teams involved in the All-Ireland final, Brendan Gorman will be blowing the whistle in the All-Ireland final.
But broaden the whole question about referees, team.
Very, very difficult. I think referees, and we tend to forget, certainly whenever I was playing, and even club manager tend to forget, like players, they have off days, except that the consequences sometimes can be, you know, have a much more impact. I'm not sure. I think the standard of refereeing this year to date in the championship has been quite poor. The interpretation of rules, the application of sanctions, some of it is their fault, some of it is not. I do believe, for example, the yellow card system, we should have a cumulative system. I still believe that there is room for another punitive measure between a yellow card offence that is minimal and actually a yellow card offence which is an intentional, deliberate foul.
A sin bin type thing?
I think a sin bin wouldn't be a bad idea. I think we've got to explore that because, you know, we've seen, and I don't like going back to Tyrone and Derry, for example. I mean, there was a lot of publicity. Well, Paddy Russell, he booked 12 players. He booked Damon Coleman's 13.
Yes, but Damien, this is coming from someone. This is coming from someone who reckons that Anthony Tohill shouldn't have been sent off.
I actually
Anthony Tohill, I think everyone agrees by now, should have been sent off.
I think under the rules, they probably should have been sent off. But both their tackles and the referee's interpretation of their tackles is a split second. I mean, we have the hindsight of action replay, slow-mo, etc. There needs to be the use of video evidence. There needs to be the use of technology. I think all of those things can only enhance the game.
Yeah, funny enough, Austin Quinn here from Cookstown says he thinks a video replay should be tried. I think everything available to a referee and official should be used.
Yeah, that was living proof there. Those pictures that it wasn't needed. Brendan Gorman got that absolutely right.
But referees are human, you know, they miss things.
Yeah, they do miss things. I think one of the things that Brendan Gorman and Pat McEnany did to the credit, it's a team game for the referees. They've got to use their linesmen. I mean, what other sport has got so many officials and they should be making a decision? There shouldn't be half the off-the-ball stuff that's going on. I think I would agree with you that video evidence should be used, and I would also agree that a sin bin type thing would obviously open the game. You know, because 15 aside, let's face it now, the teams are so fit that probably the loss of 2 or 3 players for a 10-minute spell could be a difference between winning and losing a game.
Well, the other thing too, the referees as well at the same time are go ahead at least. They've introduced the yellow and red. They've got the electronic flags. They've got the system again for the substitutes, which needs to be cleaned up. But at least they're getting there.
I think there's so many issues. Very complex issue. One of the things which I was happy to see there was Brendan Gorman chatting to a couple of players, which in the heat of the battle, I mean, it's tremendous because your perception of the referee even changes. And I think that's a good thing. There is a notion of us and them, and you saw the reaction of the Kildare supporters. I mean, their reaction was he was against us. But I still
they can
believe,
never win. They can never win with the supporters.
But Frank,
yeah, because easily been a me supporter or a Tyrone supporter.
There are fundamental problems. We look at people who stand beside goalposts. We talk about them year in, year out. We have 7 officials. We have 1 who's an assessor sitting in the stand. And if they can't adjudicate without all of these things, I can't understand why they can't, for example, use video evidence afterwards. I can't understand that.
Well, I agree with that too. If a player can be suspended or brought before a disciplinary committee because of video evidence, I think as well things like that can be looked at. Even on the day, I would be for.
You've made a good point.
An eye on the sky almost.
In terms of referee development, it has come on. But what have we done to train umpires? What have we done to make them more user-friendly, if you like? What have we done to bring them into the arena? In all of my time in inter-county football, I can only remember 1 referee coming into the change rooms before the game and saying, look, this is what's going down, this is what's not.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there. Sorry, time has beaten us. Now, last week we showed this photograph taken by Anne McManus. We asked for ideas for a caption. We had a huge response. The winning entry was Eamon, the back door's this way. I suppose it had to happen, and the winner was a cheeky person from Strabane in County Tyrone, Patrick Clacken. He wins 2 tickets to the provincial final of his choice. That's it for tonight. Good luck to all the teams of the weekend. Don't forget the debate continues all week on our website, but for now, from Frank, Jared, Damien and myself, it's good night.